history between the European and later the United States with the indigenous peoples of North America has been one of off and on conflict. Much of this conflict has involved bloody atrocities committed by both sides without regards to age or sex. While not the worst, the fighting along the Washita River in western present-day Oklahoma is an example. Hello, history travelers. Okay, today we are at the Battle of Washita. This was one of the lopsided fights between the Army and the Indians. The ironic thing about this particular battle is the Cheyenne Indian band that was attacked was led by Chief Black Kettle. Black Kettle was what was known as one of the peace chiefs, and he wanted he did not want war between the Cheyenne and the Army. Also, Black Kettle was the chief of the Cheyenne band that was attacked by the Colorado volunteer cavalry at the Battle of Sand Creek, or actually the Sand Creek massacre, which had occurred about 14 years before the Battle of Washita. Well, I take it back. Washita was in 1868, and Sand Creek was 1864, so I'm way off. It was only 4 years between the two fights. I'm a little disappointed in this location, or this site here, because once upon a time I thought there was a visitor center. It's not. It's just the monument here, a little gazebo, and what looks like a trail. So let's go check it out. If you need to use the restroom, it's right over there, and see what is here at the site of the battle. Conflict between the Indian tribes and the settlers from the Mississippi River in the east to the Rocky Mountains and beyond in the west had been increasing since the 1840s. Gold discoveries in the Rocky Mountains from Colorado to Montana in the 1850s and 60s, the construction of the telegraph, the Homestead Act, which opened up the West to settlers, and the building of the Transcontinental Railroad intensified conflict between the indigenous people on the Great Plains and the newly arriving travelers, miners, settlers, and railroaders. The Americans, on the other hand, encountered raiding, hunting, and captive-taking practices that were central to the Plains Indians' way of life. Following the Civil War, the United States government attempted to establish peaceful relations with the Plains Indians. To this end, the government concluded the 1867 Medicine Lodge Treaty. The United States intended the treaty to remove Indians from the path of American expansion, thereby avoiding costly wars. By terms of the treaty, the U.S. government promised the tribes peace and protection from white intruders in return for annuities and relocation to reservations in Western Indian Territory, modern-day Oklahoma. Both the United States and the tribes failed to honor several articles of the treaty. Appropriation for Indian annuity goods and rations were delayed and inadequate, producing starvation, sickness, and material deprivation among the tribes. The tribes, on their part, continued raiding and taking captives outside the reservations in violation of the treaty. General Sheridan, commander of the Department of the Missouri, was tasked with ending these raids. Sheridan realized that warm weather campaigns against the mobile plains tribes was ineffective. He therefore planned to attack them during the winter. Sheridan's plan called for a three-pronged campaign against the Southern Arapaho and Cheyenne. Troops from Colorado, New Mexico, and Kansas were to converge on the tribes camped in the Western Indian Territory. The principal column in the campaign was to come from the 7th Cavalry in Kansas under Lieutenant Colonel George Custer. Custer had been court-martialed earlier for desertion and suspended from rank and command for 1 year. Sheridan, however, reinstated him to command the 7th for this campaign. The 7th departed Fort Dodge, Kansas, into Indian Territory and established Camp Supply and waited for additional troops. Slowed by a severe snowstorm, these troops were unable to reach the rendezvous. On November 23rd, the 7th set out alone towards the Canadian River. Scouts found an Indian trail further south near the Washita River. Custer reformed to follow the trail down to the Washita. Custer's Osage scouts, enemies of the Cheyenne, had led him to the Cheyenne village of Black Kettle. Chief Black Kettle was one of the peace chiefs. He had moved his band of about 250 Cheyenne to a larger Cheyenne camp on the Washita. Black Kettle had been attacked at Sand Creek in Colorado in 1864, and he hoped to find safety in numbers by camping along the Washita. Arriving on a ridge behind the Indian camp after midnight on November 27th, Custer divided his force into 4 battalions, moving each into position so that at first light they could simultaneously converge on the village. Major Elliott, more about him later, was to attack the east side of the camp. Another detachment was to cross the river and attack the west side of the camp. A third detachment was to circle around the camp and attack from the south. Custer and the companies with him were to attack from the north. As day broke, someone from the village spotted the soldiers and fired a shot to warn the camp. The fight was on. The bugle called charge, and the musicians played Gary Owen to signal the attack. The Cheyenne warriors hurriedly left their lodges to take cover behind trees and in the deep ravines. Within 10 minutes, the village had been overrun. Custer controlled the village, but it took longer to quell the remaining resistance. In the village, warriors attempted to fight off the soldiers, while women and children ran for cover in the trees along the riverbank. Historians and archaeologists believe this is the location of the village. In the past 150 plus years, the Washita has flooded several times and cut new channels, so all evidence of the camp has been lost. Black Kettle and his wife, Medicine Woman, were shot in the back and killed while fleeing on a pony. Following the capture of Black Kettle's village, Custer was in a difficult position. As the fighting began to subside, he saw large groups of mounted Indians gathering in the nearby hilltops and learned that Black Kettle's village was only one of many Indian encampments along the river, where thousands of Indians had gathered. Fearing an attack, he ordered some of his men to take defensive positions, while the others seized the Indian property and horses. They destroyed what they could not carry or did not want, slaughtering about 675 ponies and horses. They spared 200 horses to carry prisoners. It was in this ravine that the pony herd was slaughtered, and the bones remained until the 1930s, when they were collected and ground up into fertilizer. Near nightfall, fearing the outlying Indians would find and attack his supply train, Custer began marching his forces towards the other Indian encampments. The surrounding Indians retreated, at which point Custer turned around and returned to his supply base, ending the fighting. Custer's abrupt withdrawal without determining the fate of Major Elliott and the missing troopers darkened Custer's reputation among his peers. The Army lost 21 officers and men killed. 20 of the soldiers killed were part of the small detachment led by Major Joel Elliott. Elliott had separated from the 3 companies he led, apparently without Custer's approval. Yelling, "Here's for a brevet or a coffin," Elliott and a small band pursued a group of fleeing Cheyenne. Elliott's contingent ran into a mixed party of Cheyenne, Kiowa, and Arapaho warriors who were rushing from the villages up the river to aid Black Kettle's encampment. The warriors overwhelmed the small group in a single charge. There was deep resentment within the 7th Cavalry that never healed. In particular, Captain Frederick Benteen, Elliott's friend and H Company commander, never forgave Custer for abandoning Elliott and his troopers. 8 years later, when Benteen failed to race to Custer's aid at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, his actions were closely examined in light of his long-standing anger towards Custer for the events at the Washita River. Was this a battle or a massacre? In his first report of the battle to General Sheridan, Custer reported that after actual and careful examination, his men found the bodies of 103 warriors. In fact, no count of the dead had been made. The number was based on Custer's reports from his officers the day after the attack. The actual number killed is unclear. Cheyenne, as well as Custer's civilian scouts, give the casualties at Washita much lower. Historically, casualty figures range from 103 to 20 warriors killed and between 40 to 12 women and children also killed. Historians today estimate the Indian casualties as perhaps a total of 50 killed and about an equal number wounded. Battle or massacre? You decide. Thanks so very much for watching this video. Please take time to like, comment, and if you haven't, subscribe. It helps the channel.